Bobby Charlton. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. Into Sheringham. And Solskjaer has done it. And Solskjaer saved it. United again. Rooney. A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Colm.
And I'm David.
Three of us here. We're just a few hours after the last day of the season and all very glad and relieved to finally be over the line after, a nervy couple of last few matches we've had. We did record just before the West Ham match, and we're not going to go into that one too much, but, 1-1 over there we had, and was quite a frustrating game, basically. And then we knew we went into this game needing the 1 point to get us through. And David, I think you were the only one who thought we had a chance of actually getting third early in the season, right? I think you've been mentioning this like on a daily basis for the last couple of weeks or so.
It was never in doubt that we were going to get third or fourth, is what I was on record as saying. Football is this amazing thing that it doesn't throw up that many surprises when you look at a team's running at the end of the season, and Leicester's was awful for them. It was just, you look that far ahead and you say, we've got a great run in and theirs is awful. They're going to drop points, and if we keep winning. And when I made this prediction, we'd already signed Bruno and things were looking up. For me, I was confident making that prediction. It wasn't just coming off the back of a win and being on that high. It was really like, no, Leicester are going to struggle. And I called it, said that last game of the season is going to mean something. I can see Leicester dropping out of the top four and us taking a spot alongside Chelsea.
You didn't put any money on it, though, unfortunately, did you? I think you would have got pretty good odds back then. It was sometime February or something like that. I think you might have mentioned it.
Yeah, I didn't put any money on it, unfortunately. But
exactly what date? What match day or what match did you make this prediction, Dave?
It was just before the City game in March. I think it was March the 5th. I made this prediction, and then kind of coronavirus happened right after that. So pre-corona, beginning of March, around about then. And I think we were maybe 12 or 14 points behind Leicester with a game in hand at that point.
We were 14 points at one point, but that was way before that. I think that was more like kind of towards the end of January. I think maybe we were around 11 or 12 when you said it. I was kind of confident that we were going to get top four, but I didn't think we could catch Leicester. But yeah, in the end we managed to. I mean, to be fair to Leicester, they were missing a lot of big players in this run-in over here. And today, that's why, it was even more frustrating how long it took us to kind of seal this in the end. They've got like 4 or 5 of their big players out, haven't they? Right, Maddison, Chilwell, Sionchu,
Ricardo.
Ricardo. So, yeah, I mean, apart from Vardy, that's probably like 4 of their big players of the season. So, really, there was kind of like no excuses. But then you thought there was no excuses for us beating West Ham the other day. But we've just seen these kind of lethargic performances come in the last couple of matches, Chelsea as well, where quite clearly certain players had been tired. It's something we talked about a lot on the last pod, the tiredness. And that's why I did go into this match slightly worried about, is he going to freshen it up, or is the same players going to manage to just bring out one more 90 minutes to just get us over the line? And look, thankfully we've done it. I mean, Colm, I know you didn't think that third was any way achievable or even fourth a while back, but now in the last few weeks you obviously thought it was on, right?
Oh, I mean, of course, when it becomes... I mean, it was never mathematically impossible because we are in third right now. We are the third best team in the land. But I wouldn't have said it was possible. No, January, February, March, even we started stringing results together with Bruno, I still don't think I would have at that time ever said that it was even likely, although it was always possible. But then as it's gone on and on and on, of course, it flips from something that's possible to something that is then expected, and that's the interesting thing, is that in the last sort of 4 or 5, well, not even that long, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, it's kind of flipped to that level of sort of saying, we would now, looking at those run-ins, expect to, as Dave says, be in control of things on the last day of the season. And that's a different mindset to be in, because a lot of pundits and that have made the point during the weekend today that, chasing something down is quite an easy position to be in because it's pressureless. You just have this target and all the pressure's on the team that's out in front, and you just have to go and win games, and there isn't that same expectation. But when it then gets down to the crunch of actually having to go out and do the thing that you've put yourself in position to do, it's a whole different feeling and a whole different vibe. And that was where we came a cropper last year, and it's so brilliant for Ole and for the club in general that didn't happen this year, even though we did. We were on the brink, we were hovering at points, I think, over the last sort of 2 or 3 games.
Well, yeah, there has actually been, it's true, a lot of similarities. That last year we had this amazing run of going, winning, and then it just dropped off completely. And I remember, at the start of the season, we put this down completely to tiredness. And we said, look, they obviously just ran out of steam, the new kind of Ole press system, the team's not ready for it, but, this season we'll be ready for it. But again, we seem to have had exactly the same kind of issue. And again, Ole, for me, has not rotated enough. And, we started with that, what is our first 11 in this Leicester game? I mean, the only one is Williams comes in for sure, which is like the kind of forced change. I actually had said pre-match that I think he should leave out either Bruno or Pogba and play Fred or McTominay, partly because we needed a draw and partly also because they were both looking absolutely knackered. And I thought, if we then need the goal, one of them can come in and make that difference. But no, he's gone with that same kind of starting 11. And we started slowly again, right? I mean, there was a few nervy moments early on with Leicester and all. I was normally I'm not. I'm like quite confident, very relaxed, saying, "Look, we're going to do it." But today, I was not feeling like super confident just because of our last 2 performances, and just didn't know what to expect. So every little shot, and there was I don't know, David De Gea did another fumble from him, from Vardy, in the first half, and you're like, we're not going to go this way again, are we? But yeah. What? Dave, were you feeling confident all the way through?
When I saw Leicester's lineup, I was a bit more confident because I knew they had some injuries, but I didn't know that their squad had been almost decimated in parts. Although in saying that, I think Pereira's got some competition in that right back spot. After James Justin performance today for them, I thought he was their standout player. But if you look at their lineup and you look at ours, and I know some of our guys have been showing signs of tiredness, Bruno and Pogba, like you mentioned, but you still, when you see those team sheets, you would expect us to beat them. Maybe not comfortably like the way, I don't say we beat them comfortably, but I never thought we were in too much danger today. But I just thought our team sheet looked significantly better. Our team sheet looked like a team that deserves to be in the Champions League, and Leicester's looked like a top half. They were missing way too many players today, and just because of that, I expected us to at very least get a draw. And I think the game played out kind of the way I would expect with us. I did say to one of my friends, I was chatting to him about it, saying I think we'll probably have 1 goal in it and then grab a late goal at the end, and then Jesse Lingard steps up and cements our 3rd place and our back return to Champions League football. But no, I thought we took advantage of their squad members missing today, and there was only a couple of points during the game that I was getting frustrated, but more with our play as opposed to being concerned that Leicester were going to do anything to stop us getting what we needed.
Yeah, there were definitely a few nervy moments. So early on, Matic gave the ball away a couple of times. Maguire gets a yellow card. So like I said, it wasn't like the greatest start, but at the same time, Leicester didn't really have any clear chances or anything. Not that we created that much either.
Yeah, Vardy off the crossbar was probably as close as they came, and that's like a glancing header at the front post, can go anywhere. I don't think they got much closer than that. I don't really remember De Gea making a save. I remember him almost. I know it was offside, but I don't know what he was thinking when Vardy kind of clattered into him and they exchanged words. I don't know how De Gea didn't manage to keep that close to his body. It was really strange, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again with De Gea, but he wasn't too trouble today.
Yeah, that's the thing. They didn't really test him, so he didn't have that much to do. But yeah, going forward, it's obviously going to be one of the big question marks. And we've talked about it a lot already. We did even talk about it on the last show and say, could even Romero come in? But no, Ole stuck with everybody all the way through. And yeah, I can kind of understand that. They're the ones who've done the business earlier on, those kind of, especially that 4 starts in a row where we had the same lineup and we won whatever it was, 3 matches in a row by 3 goals.
I think with that rotation thing, the time to rotate was West Ham, was possibly Southampton, was, games in that running, other games that we maybe won slightly comfortably. Those were the times to rotate. I think Ole had pretty much set his stall out a few games ago to say that just isn't happening. And the last day of the season against Leicester was never going to be the time. I think no matter how dead on their feet the players looked, that Ole was going to then make that decision, having so clearly shown that he didn't trust his squad and his bench, which is really interesting. And ultimately, I wouldn't say he's gotten away with it. He's been proven right in it, really. The performances did definitely tense up, and I think a huge part of that was down to fatigue. Even today, Bruno just looked dead on his feet for the entire time he's on the pitch. Still contributed, but lots of wayward passing and a real lack of energy or pressing, and because of that fatigue. But that was Ole's decision, and ultimately we have finished third. And that's the thing we would have all wanted. No one cares about the FA Cup now, which is totally fine. No one really ever cared about the Carabao Cup, and now we don't even have to care about the Europa League, even though it'll be nice to be in it in a pressure-free environment. So Ole has absolutely been proven right in those decisions, even though at times it looked pretty brutal with keeping some of those players on the pitch. I think what he was trying, I think what he might have been trying to do is really send a message to both the players on the bench and the board for the transfer window in next year. I think he will definitely have pushed some players further towards the exit door than they may have been, by basically saying, look, I don't trust you and I don't see you playing here, in quite a harsh manner. But that's no bad thing, because we still need rid of players. And then I think he's also said to the board, look what I can do for you, but at the same time, it ain't going to go so well if it's always going to be like this. We need strength and depth. And if those two things happen, i.e. those kind of squad players leave and better players come in this summer, then I think you'd have to look at that as quite a masterstroke by Ole, and it shows a real grit and steel and nastiness to him, that I think is quite, nastiness in terms of the players who aren't getting minutes in any way, shape or form, and also kind of nastiness to the players who are having to play all the minutes. He has that kind of hard mentality for his players, in terms of, he's been on record before saying, if you're at United, you should expect to play 60 games a year, and you should just go and do it. It's not he has this real high physical expectation of his players. And it does remind me, I hate to say it, of Klopp's first few years at Liverpool, where they would fade really badly towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
But eventually
to the end of matches as well. They always used to concede games towards the end of their games.
But ultimately, after a year, 2 years, 3 years of getting the right players in and those players getting used to that culture, then it all changes for the best, and you iron that out and you manage the games better. And if we're on that same journey, then that's no bad thing.
But yeah, I think that is the big question. It was even interesting. I saw Ole's post-match, and the people asking questions were saying, look, do you put this resurgence down to Bruno? Because, at that point you were 14 points behind Leicester. Since he's come in, you've made up and ended up finishing above them. And he said, yeah, look, it is partly down to him. And then he even mentioned himself that, even though he was off his game today, because, I think we all saw that those passes that 3 weeks ago, every one of them was hitting the right target. Yeah. He was a yard off in nearly every pass. He wasn't closing down like he was. And then Ole said himself, look, he's obviously tired. He's played too many games. So he knows it himself. It's not like that he thinks he's still fresh or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, to me, it is then a little bit weird then, because I think, you said it's quite harsh on certain players. And I think players like Fred, McTominay in particular, can feel pretty hard done by.
They're definitely the two that should have a grievance. The Pereiras and the Lingards and the Mohamedas and some of the fullbacks who have been kind of below, Tim Fosu are only just back. Brandon Williams kind of forced into that change. I don't think any of them would have any kind of big, claim to say, they can't say they haven't had a fair shake of it. Fred and McTominay is just a slightly different situation. However, as good as Fred was in the first half of the season and as good as McTominay can be, post-lockdown, they haven't shown it.
Have they been given the chance, or Colm?
I don't think so. That's where I would say I would have played them against the likes of the Southamptons, the likes of the Aston Villa game. I think they could have had more minutes than they did. The West Ham game.
Yeah, there was the Norwich FA Cup game as well, where he still put out a pretty strongish team. Garlo as well is maybe one other that I thought I expected to play more minutes than he has done in this kind of running. But yeah, look, it's just picking small little issues there. But yeah, it is something we definitely need to be looking at next season, where I hope Ole does start learning to rotate. And even in games, I still often think he leaves it very late to make changes. Even in this Leicester game, as soon as Bruno scored that penalty, I was like, get him off. He's absolutely knackered. Get a defensive midfielder on and I'm going to feel way more comfortable. But yeah, he still left it till about, I think, the 85th minute or something before he made that substitution. And then, I was pretty surprised to see Lingard as well be the one that came in. But yeah, he does then get his first goal he scored scored since Ole's first match in charge when we beat Cardiff way back when in the league, which is
It's
pretty
amazing,
mental.
eh?
Some guy on Twitter lost thousands of pounds because he bet on Ole not to score or assist in the whole game, and he's in the 96th minute of the last game of this season. He's broken that bet for him.
Also, I think a fair mention for Schmeichel and Evans, which continues the long-standing tradition of ex-players and associates doing wondrous favours for Manchester United whenever we play them. So
absolutely. Although
hats
then
off to them.
Evans tried to destroy McTominay. That was a shocking challenge.
I didn't actually think it was that bad because
it was bad.
He wins the first challenge. He's already on the ground, and then because of that, he tries to go again in like one motion, and that obviously where he connects and the way he connects is bad. But it's because he's already done one challenge. He's on the floor, and then he's just trying to throw himself into another. I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't even think it was a straight red, really. But
it was a straight red because of the way, he's straight on his ankle. But I don't think he's tried to do anything on purpose. Like you say, he's on the ground. He's just then thrown himself.
Yeah.
His reaction right after it kind of saved him because he apologised straight away.
Oh, he did straight away. Yeah.
He did straight away. But if I thought it was McTominay was lucky to be able to come back on, that could have been pretty bad for him.
Obviously, it could have been pretty bad, but I thought it was pretty obvious that McTominay hit the ground, went to get back up, and then caught himself on and rolled over about 5 more times, and then lay down for 3 minutes because it was the 91st minute of 5 minutes of injury time, and then trotted off to the side of the pitch and was clearly absolutely fine. So
just on Fred, I think like of all the squad members, he probably would feel the most hard done by. I think you'd be hard pushed to find anyone who wouldn't have him either 1 or 2 for a player of the first half of the season. I would put him as number 1. He was definitely the most improved. And it's one of those good problems to have where you can get your player of the season who really didn't do anything of note, definitely since the return, since the lockdown. But I just wonder where his head is at, because he's looking at that team. He's not going to be the defensive midfielder, and Pogba and Bruno, or if they're there, they're going to play. But he was so good. Like I say, you call a player of the season in December or January, he probably gets it. So I wonder where his head is at the moment, if he's happy to be that squad player now, or if he's looking to kind of kick on, because he's kind of in his prime, and it doesn't look like he's going to get near our team anymore.
I don't think he would be too happy with the squad role, and it is really interesting. I remember when we were just about to come back post-lockdown. I remember when we just come back, and we were talking about, because we now had Bruno fit, we had Bruno, but now Pogba was fit, we were all wondering, what is the best midfield? And then it became so quickly apparent, as a lot of us thought it would, that it's Matic, Bruno, and Pogba. And as you quite rightly mentioned, Fred now stylistically just is a round peg in a square hole. It's just not. It is very hard to envisage. It would require him to really pull up trees as a different kind of DM, and I just don't know. We've seen enough to expect that would be forthcoming. But then it's really difficult, because the other issue with Fred is that he seems to be a little bit of a form player, a little bit of a confidence player. It took him a long while, and it was really only through a complete lack of options in that midfield that he even got a chance. It seemed like Ole consigned him to the bench at the start of his reign, but then he worked his way in, and it was only through such a consistent batch of games that we started to really see why we bought him and the quality that he definitely does have. And it seemed like that being dropped post-lockdown kind of eliminated that very quickly, and he then went back to that kind of mistake-riddled, just not great performances that we kind of associated with the first part of his United career. So sadly, because I think he's a legend, you do sort of struggle to see how he wins his way back in there, and how being a squad player has only a negative impact on his career.
Yeah.
I think don't forget that, we always get injury crises.
We do, yeah.
And we've been relatively lucky in this kind of post-lockdown period, even though, we have lost, especially in defence, a few players here and there, sure. But we've been pretty lucky. And Matic is not going to be somebody who's going to be playing twice a week once we start going into Champions League and things like that. So, there is going to be space. Although, he does even seem to be preferring McTominay ahead of Fred, even when he's bringing people in mostly. All right, there was the odd time where Fred came in as well. But from what I see, seems to prefer McTominay. So Fred, I agree. He should be top of the list of the kind of aggrieved of how many minutes has he had. We'll have to kind of see. I mean, I'm sure now, it's funny now, we'll go into this Europa League as just like a free hit, really. And maybe it's kind of like pre-season. It'll be like pre-season. Maybe there'll be some of the younger players who'll get a chance. And I'm sure the likes of Fred are going to play in a lot of these games, whereas quite a few players are going to have said, all right, yeah, your summer holiday starts now, I'm assuming. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he approaches this Europa League now, because we don't really need it. I mean, yeah, it's actually going to be, I think, a week on Wednesday, we already have to play the second leg of that last game.
I really want to win the Europa League. I'm excited about it, and I think the opportunity for some of the matchups we could have, like maybe against Wolves or Inter Milan, I think it's exciting. I think it's a big enough...
Wolves is not exciting. That'll be the most boring match that we could possibly... Every time we played them, it was boring. Absolutely do not want to play Wolves again. But yeah, if we can have a game against Inter Milan or something, it could be interesting.
I'd sooner play Wolves before I played Inter Milan, and I appreciate it would be a bore fest, but I'd fancy our chances, and I just cannot deal with like Lukaku coming back and scoring a hat-trick and putting us out of Europa or something like that. Because it would just, like... it would just be so annoying.
I still think I don't think, obviously it's not the biggest trophy, but I still think those players, the more trophies they can get, definitely, the better. So I don't want to see us experimenting too much with the squad, other than the home leg against Lask.
I don't think Ole will. I think that first game, yes, 100%, he'll throw it to the kids, no bother. But after that, it'll be the 11 that started today, except Luke Shaw will be in. And I would guarantee that.
I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting quite a bit of rotation, trying a few things, because for me, it should be like that's now our pre-season. The Europa League is our pre-season. We don't need to win it.
There's no break. There's no big break. People say we need a pre-season. We're not going to get a break, so there's no point in even, your pre-season is the games we're playing now. Your pre-season is the last 8 weeks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, for me, this is pre-season. And it's a chance for some players to have a rest. To be honest, would be rotating a lot. I wouldn't take it like mega seriously, especially...
I find that mental.
Yeah.
I think that's mental.
Trophies, Nick. Trophies.
Like all the way through, like our players are absolutely knackered. The biggest problem has been that players are knackered, that they can't keep up with the kind of press. So like this is the one chance to give some people a rest before the start of another grueling season. And we're going to, put out our first 11 every week again. It doesn't make any sense to me, to be honest.
Nick, just imagine Mason Greenwood lifting the Europa League and what that does for his first season.
But not just that, but they're going to get 10 days rest here now, plus another couple of days because they're not going to play the last game. Like, what more rest do they need? They don't need 3 weeks off to be fit again. They just need not to have to play 3 games every week, forever. And that won't happen in the next new season. It shouldn't happen in the next new season. So the cataloguing, we had 92 games to play, 92 Premier League games to play in this short window post-lockdown. Next season is going to be like that. It's going to follow a much more lengthened out schedule, even though it'll probably still be a hectic schedule. It won't be just what it's been like in lockdown. So, the tiredness shouldn't always be an issue moving forward just because football's back and because the regular pattern of the season has been disrupted. There's going to be 10 days rest here. They then play that tournament. They then have another week or 2 weeks or whatever, and then the next season starts. So that kind of rest I don't think should be a big issue. And if anything, their preseason is now. But like the Europa win under Mourinho was fantastic. Like that was the first time we'd won that trophy. And
yeah, but that was fantastic because it was the first time. Plus, we had to win it to get in the Champions League, so it meant a lot.
It's still a European trophy. It's not, it's not.
To be honest, I'm not that fussed about like the Europa League now that we're in the Champions League.
Oh,
of course, I'm not saying I don't want to win it. Like I'm just saying I would rotate a lot. I would try out different things. I would be giving a lot of like, especially your Brunos, Maguires, say like you have a rest. That's the way I would go in this now. But yeah, actually, like I say, I think we have to play that second leg, even though it seems a bit pointless versus Lask, because 5-0. But I think that is at Old Trafford a week on Wednesday, and then the whole thing goes off to Germany. Basically, I've not actually looked closely at what the schedule is, how often you have to play. Have either of you two looked at it? I think but I think it is pretty.
It's going to be pretty tight. Yeah, I think it's every
it's like
2-3
a World
days.
Cup style tournament. Exactly. So look. Anyway, let's see who we get after that. I think it was either some Istanbul team or Copenhagen. Basically, will be our next opponent because we're obviously through in this last game.
Yeah.
And then the champions, they're actually the Turkish champions. I'd never heard of them before, but they've won the Turkish league for the first time, and that they've got a game against Copenhagen. So one of those two will be first up. So it shouldn't on paper be the most difficult game, but I guess if you're the champions of Turkey, then you've got to be pretty decent.
Yeah, the quarterfinals are on the 10th of August. And the 11th, the semis are on the 16th, and then the final is the 21st. So we're in the quarters. So we'll have if we play, we'll then have a 5-day rest before the the semis. But it's a one-off, right? Like, it's a one-off game. There's no second leg.
That's exactly, no second leg. And it's only 3 games. It'll be class. I'm really looking forward to it.
Honestly, it's the end of the season, just in general. Like, it has, given everything that's going on in the world, I think the Premiership especially, and the Championship as well in that matter, did such a good job of bringing that joy back. And just for us now, like, and I guess Wolves get this feeling as well, is there's so much more meaning to this because of everything that's going on. I think cementing the end of this season with a trophy should be viewed as a huge deal, especially for some of the younger players, and just for Bruno and his first season capping it off, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire. I think the mental positive of winning a trophy and holding it aloft is the last thing of the season before, obviously, the Champions League final. But going into next season, having done that with this team, I think it's a fitting end to the changes that we've made this year since Bruno came in. And it's good that we finished third, but let's be honest, we're aiming higher than that over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, well, I've actually seen quite a few of our fans saying, look, this isn't anything we should be celebrating. You know, finishing top 4 should be standard. But the fact is, it's not been standard for us.
No, it hasn't.
You know, since post-Fergie, there's been only half the years that we've been in the Champions League and half the years we haven't, basically. So, yeah, until, you know, the first thing we have to cement is being back. Like, we've not even done back-to-back Champions League seasons since Fergie, have we?
No.
So, yeah, you know, that's like the kind of first aim. But, you know, that is how far do you think we can go now? And I know we have had a bit of a chat offline about this kind of thing. And I think, Dave, you were pretty bullish about making a title challenge next season, right?
I definitely don't think that the gap between us and first place will be 33 points next season. If it is, you won't ever hear from me again. I'll just disappear into the wilderness. I think we'll get closer. I think, obviously, winning our spot back in the Champions League, I think it probably keeps our squad together, because I don't think anyone's going to come in for Pogba given how much he'd cost and the current climate. And I saw he put on his Instagram today a picture of him in a United training top, #Champions League. To me, I'd be very surprised if he left now. There's now a little bit extra money to go out and maybe get Sancho and a couple other players. I think we have to realistically look to challenge next season. I wouldn't say I think we're going to win it, but I would say that within 5 games of the end of next season, if it's not a possibility that we could still win it, I'd be surprised. I think Ole he's still, the job he's done with this team and how far he's brought them along, just in terms of squad togetherness, I still don't think he's getting the credit he deserves. That team are playing for each other. They're playing out on their feet today, and they're dying for the badge now, a lot of them. It's so good to see. And I think the right signings in the summer, and I don't see any big enough players moving to Man City or Liverpool, given the finances involved. I don't see them strengthening too much. But I think that we can, and I think that pushes us towards at least contending. Like, I don't think we're going to be also-rans next season, but I'd be very surprised for anything less than third and anything less than 5 games to go as still being in with a shout. But there's no way there'll be that big of a gap between us and first next season. No way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just expecting that we're not going to have any trouble being like top 4 for a start. Yeah, it's not going to be this kind of, you know, wherever we were closer to the bottom, like in November time, and the people were talking about, oh, we'll be lucky to be top 10. And in fact, I remember even there was like Rob on this podcast had predicted that we were going to be 8th or something like that. That was his actual prediction at the start of last season. And I remember halfway through the season, we were still arguing about whether that was actually not so bad a prediction.
People thought we could get relegated. They were being serious. People genuinely thought we could be relegated.
Yeah. This is where we were around whatever November time. People were saying, well, maybe actually Rob wasn't so crazy to say we were going to come 8th at the start of the season. Because I remember he was really disappointed about our transfers last summer. He was really disappointed we didn't bring in Bruno or something like that. And in the end, it was a legitimate problem. Pogba got injured, and we saw what happened to the team before he came back in. But yeah, look, in the end, we have ended up 3rd there. But yeah, so Colm, you tell me, how much credit does Ole get? Because, you know, at various points this season, you've obviously been extremely critical of him.
Yeah.
So where are we now on Ole?
He gets immense credit. I think I'm happiest and most impressed by him out of it. You know, whether you look at the players, Bruno, Pogba, Martial, and his good season, I think Ole deserves the most credit out of anyone and everyone. I think you need to really step back and look at where we were in January, 15 points behind Leicester, whatever else it was, and look at that run, still unbeaten in the league in that time, and just really think about how impressive that is. And it's very easy, and it has been over the last week or two, to really get very nervous about that and think that it was just another run like last year's, and that Ole's tenure might end up being categorised by these kind of roller coaster, highest highs, lowest lows, with such clear demarcation between the two, like 10 games awful, 10 games brilliant, 10 games awful, 10 games brilliant. I think this end of the season, slightly jerky though it was, really evidences that hopefully isn't the case, and that's a growing point for him and the team. He remains exceptional in his press conferences. I know they did used to really rile me up. I still think he's sometimes too much Mr. Nice Guy, but I think in those team selections and in those decisions he's made around the club, we can see that that's just a face for the media kind of thing, and that there is a steel there that's been hugely impressive. So tons and tons and tons of credit, and he deserves all of it, along with McKenna and Carrick, because that is a brutal slog of a season with a lot of things going wrong. It is, 66 points, the lowest points total to get top four, I think, maybe in the Premier League history. 1 point better than Moyes' awful season that we all view as completely dismal. But those kind of stats really lack context, and the context is you can only play the league you're in, and everyone else is kind of in the same spot as us regards Chelsea, Spurs, Wolves, Arsenal, all those kind of teams that would normally probably haul in a few more points. The one little small issue I still have, and I think it was evident again today, although I do put a lot of it down to tiredness, is I still think tactically there's room for improvement, I would say, whereas previously I would have said we're goddamn awful. I think there's still big issues around fullbacks and how we progress the ball on the flanks and stuff like that. But do you know what? Literally 2 or 3 summer signings could make that problem go away very, very quickly. And,
Absolutely.
You would absolutely trust Ole to make those signings. He certainly has a lot of goodwill in the bank in terms of next season, I think. And I don't think there's any risk whatsoever of him being under any threat to his job before Christmas. And it would have to take some absolute abject failure at the start of next season, I think, to even start looking at that. So I'll very happily eat my words on that. And I know that, at the time when we were criticising us, I think all the criticisms are fair, and we have grown a lot throughout the year and things have gone very well for us in certain ways. There's still a lot to prove, but it's fantastic, because who wouldn't want to see Ole succeed and play good football?
Yeah, look, and you weren't the only one. I actually remember Reese being on the podcast around that time as well, and you were both kind of talking about, listen, we're not seeing anything from the coaching side. There's no improvement.
And I still have a slight concern about that.
Yeah, well, the thing I wanted to put in that I'm actually remembering mentioning Rodgers and Lampard as coaches he felt were doing much better jobs on coaching their teams, and how he could see those teams, like their style of play coming through, and there was criticism saying, look, we can't see any style of play here. And yeah, I think everybody needs to realise that Ole has finished ahead of both Rodgers and Lampard now.
He absolutely has. I think, to be fair to Reece, what he said about Lampard was that his Chelsea team is going to be like his Derby team, which is exceptional going forward and awful at the back, and that is exactly what his Chelsea team is like. So I think Reece was pretty spot on with that. Although I've been impressed by Lampard this year, and I think they will win the FA Cup and look even better next year. So, I don't necessarily think you have to run other people down to build Ole up or anything like that.
Yeah, it was just interesting comparisons at the time,
Yeah.
like seeing where teams are and new managers, younger managers coming in and building teams. And, and like I say, a lot of that talk at the time was about the coaching side, saying, look, we're not seeing players improve. We're not seeing a style of play. But I think those kind of criticisms have surely been answered now, right? We know what the style is. The style is press. The style is fast transition, counter-attack. And, when it works, it is amazing. But yeah, that's why I'd still find it weird that he was sending out semi-tired players who can't do that press, whereas players like Fred and whatever are absolutely built for pressing. Still, that's my only criticism.
I'm not sure Ole is as committed to the press as you think he is. I think in post-lockdown we have seen a higher press and a press, but still not. I don't think anywhere. I wouldn't put us in the top. Somewhere in the top 5 to 10.
We're not a Klopp style press, but it's a lot more.
It's a lot more than what we were used to. Yeah, it's a lot more.
Well,
than
we had Jose, which is the kind of opposite, I guess, often for a while. So yeah, I guess for us.
But I do think, in terms of style, I think the kind of building from the back good football, lots of partnerships forming. I mean, I look at the Mason and Martial goal at West Ham, the link up between Rashford and Martial, Bruno getting released in behind the midfield and breaking on teams, which we've seen so much now, and he is just so quick to slip a ball through to feed Martial. Happened probably 2 or 3 times today, and obviously it's how we got the goal in the end. That to me, that's a much more identifiable way that we play now, with Pogba kind of dictating from deeper, Matic kind of sitting and holding the reins. And to me, that is Ole's style. And in the period where we were dominating everyone, winning by the 3 and 4 goal margins, it was all going so perfectly, and you could just see it. That was it. That was the kind of peak of it. And I think that's what we will emulate next year when we're suitably rested. I think the only reason we've come a cropper at Southampton and West Ham and teams that are very organised, and even Leicester today, which was the similar sort of game where a team just sits in against you, is just mainly fatigue. But in moments, it was still there. There was still those moments. Like for the goal, Mason wins it back. Bruno straight away, as sharp as anything, drops that through ball in, which is not a super easy through ball. And that happened a few times during the game. So you still get those little moments. It's just, I think, when the players were fitter, hungrier, a wee bit more focused before everything got so much of a slog and the pressure started mounting up, they were able to produce that more regularly across the 90 minutes. But I do think that's the style of football that he wants. I think that will be built on next year and be even better next year with a few signings. My concern is still just the fullbacks and the flanks and how we kind of tactically, personnel and tactically, because I think, for large swathes of that game today, Leicester's plan was let Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Brandon Williams have the ball. And by the way, how much of a miss is Luke Shaw? I think that really, the run in here has really put a star on his name, kind of thing, to say, actually, he's been really good lately. And, he's someone we've always been very back and forth about, but and it's not a disservice to Brandon Williams, but it makes a big impact on Rashford, big impact on our whole left side when Luke Shaw isn't playing.
And it is strange that, because, earlier in the season, people were saying, listen, Williams is ready to be replacing Shaw. And there was quite a lot of people saying that way. He burst through and he had some really good attacking performances. And I'd kind of then gone with the opinion that, listen, Shaw is the much more defensively sound player, whereas Williams is the one we should play against teams who are going to park the bus because he's much better at the attacking side of it. But I kind of agree with you that you kind of see maybe that Shaw, even though he doesn't ever get assists and goals, that his actual general play and link up maybe with Rashford is actually better than you actually realise. And it's only when he's not there that you kind of actually see that. I mean, I do partly as well think that Williams has been slightly playing within himself, and that injury has slightly affected him. I think these kind of things, you don't go in as maybe you're like 1% less when you're going into challenges, running around and whatever. I do think there might be something a bit into that as well. But I do know that both of you have been pretty critical about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and I actually think unfairly so, because I think he's one of the players who's right at the top of the list of being absolutely knackered and played way too many matches. He does have this kind of style where he's never going to win any trophies for kind of technique.
That's not a style. That's just being purely technical at football. It's not a style. You can't call it a style to be bad with your feet.
Well, no, but listen, right? You say poorly technical. Look, he can still beat players. He's racked up more assists. Like the first half of the season, he was offering very little attacking wise, but was getting a lot of plaudits for this defensive play. Nobody can get past him. Loads of tackles, but he has had now like a decent amount of assists, and there was even several chances that he's made that weren't ending in goals. Look, so key passes.
To be absolutely clear on what I think about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, he has a few tricks. He has sort of quite quick wingery feet, so he can work out of tight spaces dribbling sometimes. He also has one move, which is to push it down the line and then chip across in, which occasionally got him a few assists there, and he can occasionally deliver a ball across the floor decently. That's fine, and I appreciate what you're saying about him adding a few more assists and looking a bit more of a threat in the attacking third. As the season went on, everyone saw that, and it would be disingenuous to say that wasn't the case, because it was the case, and that is pleasing and maybe a good sign. The issue I have is, take assists and attacking play out of it. Just when he gets the ball from Victor Lindelof in our half or in the opponent half, his touch is not sound. He is not in control of the ball. His passing is poor. It's often behind players. It's kind of zipped in awkwardly. And I just think he's very easy to corral and to mark out of a game and to let the possession go through him. And ultimately, I think it's why we struggle to sometimes progress the ball out of our own half, is because he's poor at it. And I just think there's a base level of technique there. These he does look awkward and ungainly on the ball. It doesn't, it just doesn't look natural. And at that high
I
level,
agree
you
with
see
that. He
from
does look awkward and sometimes, but for me, I still think that it works pretty well. And like I say, you're giving the plaudits there to Luke Shaw, but he's had way more assists than Luke Shaw this season. He's also had less regularity and partner on that right side, whereas more recently he has been Greenwood. Not been a huge amount of link between them yet, but whereas on the left side it was more regular, Shaw to kind of Rashford. On the right side, there's been a lot of different players played there until this last kind of month or so, when Greenwood has started the vast majority of the matches. But yeah, look, maybe that is a partnership on that right side that has to grow as well. I mean, Greenwood is obviously one of the big, huge positives of this season. We've talked about him a lot over the season, but yeah, the most goals from a teenager since Wayne Rooney, basically.
yeah.
I think equal with him now for this season. I think it is. George Best as well. These are the kind of names he's up there with for how many goals as a teenager. Best and Rooney, they're the only ones who've come anywhere near the amount of goals he's scored. And I think he's played less games than Rooney did in the early time when he came in as well.
Guy's a star. He's just an absolute star in the making, and I can't see him going anywhere else. But you can just tell at that age. It's so easy to forget that he's only 18. But I think it was the first 5 minutes today. Leicester put a cross in, and Greenwood was kind of on the corner of the 18-yarder. Ball was coming out the sky, and he just played this little touch inside to Matic, who was in space. Turned and went round the corner for the 1-2. I mean, what 18-year-old is doing stuff like that? He's so confident in his ability, and I think he's still playing a little bit within himself. I think he could have done more, definitely in the last 3 or 4 games, but he doesn't give the ball away very often. He doesn't. I don't know. I just think he's probably going to be definitely this decade. I think he's going to end up being our best player. He has everything. I've never seen someone so comfortable on both feet, and you can tell defenders are scared of it. Like the directive now is don't let him shoot, and that just frees him up space to kind of. You saw a pass he slid in behind for Martial that was just a little bit too long. He has that eye as well. I think he's guaranteed superstar, guaranteed top goal scorer within a couple of years. He's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Alan Shearer came out and said that he's the first player he's seen that he thinks could beat his top Premier League all-time top scorer, and he said that he thinks he will do it. And I think it's just, I mean, Dave, what you said there about those little slip-through balls, I think he had 2 or 3 today, sort of inside the full-back and centre-back for Martial to run onto, and I was actually disappointed in him because, well, first of all, it was really nice to see. He can play, he has really good playmaking ability, and it was nice to see that he's now kind of growing into the team enough where he's looking for that and settling into that. I was just a bit disappointed that he overhit a few of them because there's no reason for him to do that because he's that good.
The pitch had got
a bit wet. Yeah, it came down.
Rain.
Yeah, it started pouring out.
Yeah, but I think the point you're making about Wan-Bissaka, Nick, is the way that we play. Wan-Bissaka should be even more effective offensively. So the front three that we have occupies their entire defence. Bruno and Pogba usually occupies their midfield. So there's so much space for Wan-Bissaka to operate in. I think if you put one of the better right-backs of the last 10, say Dani Alves, if you put him in that team, the same setup, he gets 15, 20 assists.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Dani Alves, you're talking about literally the best right back
for
a generation.
I would say I absolutely agree, Dave, but I think Ricardo, who's missing for Leicester today, the right back, I've been extremely impressed by him throughout the season.
Yeah.
Far more culture on the ball, far better bringing it out, great running with the ball. I think if you pop him in there and give him that time and space, he would hurt teams with far more regularity than Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, well, no, let's not forget, he is a very young player. Yeah,
I don't mean to get down on Wan-Bissaka because he's fantastic defensively in the one-on-one. I think positionally he can be found out. And he's an extremely young player. Let's not forget. There's obviously room for growth and development. I mean, he really, really is young, so we shouldn't expect him to be the finished article. But there's things there that I just don't think are things that can be improved upon too much, if you know what I mean. And my only slight concern is that our fullbacks are huge. You look at Liverpool, and a reason why they are so dominant this year is because their fullbacks are extraordinary playmakers. And I don't mean to set a ridiculously high standard, but I even look at Tierney at Arsenal, who I think, if he could ever stay fit, would just be one of the best fullbacks in the league. I just don't think you're ever going to get that. And I think in the modern game, with the way we play football and the way we aim now to dominate possession, loads of teams are going to stick up the midfield because they don't want Pogba and Bruno running all over them. They're obviously going to mark out our front three, whether that's Sancho or Greenwood or Martial and Rashford or whatever it is. And it always comes down then to the fullbacks having the space when you're playing the 4-2-3-1. And I just feel like we're in for a few more frustrating days with those kind of performances. But I really don't want to spend time on it because everyone just deserves credit. And Wan-Bissaka has had a fantastic debut season. I mean, there's every chance he kicks on and is fantastic in his second season. And I could be
and he's improved massively throughout the season. So, like I said, in that early part of the season, he was offering literally nothing attacking wise, whereas that has come on. And, on the kind of defensive side, people have started pulling out, Trent Alexander's obviously had an absolute ridiculous amount of assists. But defensive wise, Wan-Bissaka is much stronger over there. So, but all right, you're right. He's not going to be offering as the same kind of people have been comparing Beckham now as well. Have you seen this kind of chat between who's got the better in-swinger, Beckham or Trent Alexander? So we're never going to expect something like that. But don't forget, defensively, he's absolutely rock solid. And you said earlier, Dave, that for the first part of the season, Fred would have been up there for Player of the Season. So would Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And the only other one in that first part of the season was Marcus Rashford. You kind of see our two parts of the season have been very different, pre-Bruno and post-Bruno. It's been almost two different kind of teams. But in that early part, Fred, Wan-Bissaka, Rashford, there wasn't really anybody else who was really performing for us. And people forget very quickly what happened earlier in the season.
It's the evolution of the team. So the way that team has evolved since Bruno frees up space for Wan-Bissaka. If he can take the short amount of time he's going to get off before the season starts again, if he can just improve the way that he delivers a pass into the strikers and the midfielders, he'll already be he's already making improvements. He just doesn't put the ball in as firm and as accurately as, say, Luke Shaw does. That's one of the things that you don't notice about Shaw because it doesn't get recorded as an assist. But when he passes the ball in field, Pogba and Fernandes don't have to worry about the first touch because it comes from the quality of Shaw's pass. If Wan-Bissaka can improve on just that, then I've no issue with him being the right back for the next decade because defensively, he's probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive fullbacks that I've ever seen. And that's not hyperbole.
Well, let's just be clear about that. One-on-one defending, yes. Positionally, I think that's a bold claim to make. We have seen him get caught a lot at the back post, and his offside line is quite frequently not what you would want from the best defensive fullback in the world. One-on-one, we all think of these sterling performances, and I'm not here to just rag on Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I really like him. I think he can be a great player for us, but just because he dominates Sterling every time we play City and that he's so sharp in the tackle and he's great at using his feet to kind of nip in and is so dominant one-on-one doesn't mean he's an all-round brilliant defender. Actually, the opposite could be said to be true.
Yeah, no, I don't do one of my favourite quotes, being a defender myself, is Maldini always used to say that, if I have to tackle somebody, then I've already made a mistake.
Yeah, but that's
basically.
Maldini. That's the best ever.
Yeah, but no, it's just that's what Cole's talking about is that kind of thing. And there is a point there, but at the same time, you do love to see a player slide tackling and take somebody out. You love it.
On that note, saying we're obviously focusing on fullbacks, I do think Brandon Williams, you're right, was playing slightly within himself, coming back from the injury. He's a player who I will give a lot more rope to than possibly a lot of other players, kind of like McTominay, because his energy and his effort and his willingness to smash someone when the chance is readily available is something that you just don't necessarily see that much anymore in the modern game, where maybe it used to be much more commonplace. Slightly disappointed in his on the ball ability, as you say, Nick. We used to think that he was kind of the more buccaneering, more one likely to create chances, and now that looks to slightly have regressed. But he's such a young player that I don't think you can draw any big inferences from that at the moment. I certainly wouldn't be writing him off. But I thought today he was extremely sound defensively and really up for it and gave a bit of energy and a bit of bite to us in the same way that Wan-Bissaka does when he goes to ground, and there is worth in that in of itself.
And Williams has been the surprise of the season. He wasn't one that we were expecting to see much of this year. There was actually other players like Garner, maybe Gomez, that we actually thought we might do. And even somebody like Laird was somebody I had more expectation of seeing minutes from this year.
Axel Tuanzebe, remember him?
Yeah. Whereas, Williams was not on the radar. So he has been a nice surprise this year. Obviously, we all know it's been the massive breakthrough season for Greenwood. We shouldn't forget as well that there was huge question marks at the start start of this year over Martial, even over Rashford, and both of them have had their kind of, breakout seasons, hitting 20 goals plus each. I even myself would have been impressed at how well Martial has adapted to being a proper number 9. Like, even just in this last couple of months, there's been a huge difference in his game, how he's playing back to goal and everything. I actually didn't expect it. I'd thought, look, he's doing a good, I said it maybe like just before lockdown, he said, look, he's doing a good job, and he's getting decent stats, but I still feel that he's out of position playing up front. But yeah, I take that away now, and I think that I'm really happy with him being like our number 9 option going into next season. And yeah, that has been a great season for him. And then yeah, Rashford as well, even though he's not had a great couple of weeks, because again, another one at the top of the knackered list for me. Played way too many matches, but yeah, it's also been a great season for him.
He looked dead behind the eyes today, which is amazing for the caliber of the game and the meaning of it all, and yet he looked like a zombie, and he was diabolical today, in fairness. Marcus Rashford, he's had a brilliant season. I have no concerns about him whatsoever, but I mean, he was awful today, and he was just plodding around. He wasn't even running. And one of the things I noticed today, to tie into your last point about Martial presses better than Rashford now, which is something we would never really have associated with him, but he's really taken on that mantle of the number 9 thing, and he's just... there's just no part of his game now that doesn't just look like brilliant number 9 play. It's just he holds the ball so well, uses his body so well, he looks stronger, more comfortable, and then he has that close dribbling that you just never normally see from a number 9 that just lifts him to this different kind of beast for defenders to deal with. And like, there's very few chances you expect him to fluff or anything like that, and as you say, I mean, he still probably doesn't get any headed goals or things like that, really, and we're just not a threat in that way at all as a team. But there's so few aspects of what you would want from a number 9 that he isn't currently delivering at a ridiculously high level.
Yeah, I think Rashford's chance today that he kind of cut inside.
Yeah,
I think Martial at least gets that on target. Such as the difference in where they're at right now. I agree with you, Colm. Rashford he looked like he was not there today. It was really strange. He wasn't pressing at all. And I mean, I'll cut him some slack. He's coming back from a broken back. He's absolutely knackered. He's been chucked in there. But of the front 3, in terms of signings we might make in the summer, based on the return since lockdown, Rashford's got to be the one that's most concerned about his place.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Like I said, do not forget Rashford's first half of this season, right? He was carrying us for like a few months, before the other, the others have like come on now. But yeah, that early part of the season, Rashford was absolutely like outstanding. And yeah, I think he came 3rd in one of the Player of the Year awards this week as well. Although I do think that maybe part of that might be linked to some of the stuff he's done off field this season, getting involved in some of those campaigns and everything. But no, like, do not forget how good he was in that early part. And we talked about this stat on the last thing, that even though the goals had all post lockdown been coming through Greenwood, Bruno, Martial, Rashford had as many balls into the box as any other player in the Premier League apart from Kevin De Bruyne since like we'd come back from lockdown. So yeah, don't forget the kind of build up when like a lot of goals are coming from that side as well.
I think he just has to mature and develop a wee bit as well. Still, I think it's been a brilliant season for him, but there's still a little bit of consistency that needs to come in there. But I fully expect a little bit of a rest, and he'll be back to the absolute top form. And that's the thing about that front 3 or that attack in general. I mean, we've had them for ages, so you forget how young they are, but they are young players. You wouldn't even say any of them are in their prime in any way, shape or form. And what we would typically class that to be, maybe Martial just starting to enter it in an age, context. And one of the things that really fills you with confidence, having just got over that hurdle of not, shitting ourselves with this top 4 thing, is that you just can't expect us going backwards next season. It's just so hard to see this team not kicking on with the kind of performers that have stepped out this season, with Rashford having such a good, 6-7 months. You expect him to kick on that. Martial having found his feet at number 9 and being absolutely cemented there, and the confidence that comes with that. You expect him to have an even better next year. Greenwood, I think, is going to blow up next year and probably eclipse the both of them, quite possibly. There may be a Sancho to drop into that, who's also an extremely young player wanting to come back and make his mark on a league he left, and has done such great things. I know I'm speaking about Sancho as if he's already our player. I firmly believe that. And then you still have Bruno and Pogba behind them. So it's just so hard to see that team stepping backwards. In fact, the opposite is that if we make 2 or 3 signings, it just catapults forward again, because I do expect all those players to kind of kick on,
Yeah, look, the transfer window is opening now next week. It's never my favourite subject because I hate all the just rumours and bullshit and whatever. But I think it's absolutely clear that we have an interest in Jadon Sancho. And then I think it's looking pretty clear that he does want to come to us as well. And that the big sticking point is probably a fee being agreed. That is going to be a huge thing about this transfer window because lots of clubs are not going to have the same cash reserves that they would normally have this time of season. I mean, I was just throwing in a few figures myself because, normally at this time of year, every club is bringing in season ticket money. So even at, say, United, 50,000 season ticket holders we have, you're looking at something like 50 million quid that's not come in the last 2 months that normally would come in. And all clubs around Europe are going to probably be in a similar situation. So, I mean, I can't see how transfer fees and all can stay at the kind of levels that there has been. There has to be some kind of come down, or clubs are going to have to agree much longer term deals with much less upfront. And I guess that is exactly where the kind of sticking point is coming at the moment, that Dortmund are asking, I'm sure, 6 months ago, before any of this coronavirus, you would have said, all right, Jadon Sancho, 100 million quid, right? I mean, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now today, I mean, Dortmund are obviously probably still wanting that, but we're saying, yeah, look, let's come back to reality. The world's changed. Where's the cash going to come from? So yeah, look, I'm negotiation is obviously going on. And I would be very surprised if he didn't end up our player at some point. But then, yeah, I guess as David, you alluded to, if we say that's been our great front three this season, Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, but then, yeah, you throw Jadon Sancho in there as well. I mean, yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, like the Fergie days, we always had 4 top quality attacking players. But I would love to see that. I think Sancho is he's a number 7 for us. He fills that role perfectly. The way Greenwood's playing.
Is Greenwood not going to be our number 7?
Thing, right? He's so frigging good. Like, if you had the choice right now between getting Sancho or Greenwood, like, you can get Sancho, but only if you get rid of Greenwood. No chance am I taking Sancho.
Well, there was a thread. Somebody had thrown up a thread for that on Red Cafe.
But it's a ridiculous
situation. Would you swap Greenwood for Sancho right now?
That's like, of course we wouldn't, because Greenwood's ours. He's our youth product, and we know exactly how good he is. I mean, objectively, you would still have to say Sancho's the safer bet and the one that you should pick. It'll probably only be United fans who would pick Greenwood. Well, and Premier League followers, I suppose, but then Bundesliga will probably say the exact opposite about Jadon Sancho. But I don't even know why I'm saying these things, because at a base level, it's a ridiculous argument, because we don't have to. We can have them both. And I think that just moves Greenwood to getting minutes on the left, which I think he would, and be brilliant. Getting minutes at number 9, which I think he would, and be brilliant, and still getting minutes at right wing. Greenwood is not a right winger. He's been exceptional there, and he looks so deadly there coming on his left. That will not be his position. He's a number 9.
If he can do it right, then it's formidable. It's arguably the best. I mean, would you call it a front 4? I don't know if you can when one of them isn't going to play. But as far as available options, it's as good as anyone in Europe potentially. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches. So I want to see them go for it. My problem now is after I was huge on needing another centre half, but then I see Victor Lindelof's performance today, and all of a sudden I'm back in love with the guy. So I don't know where we need to spend.
He's had a very good few weeks. He's had a good couple of weeks.
No, we need another centre back. For me, that's still one of our areas, is our weakest points. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm interested in, actually. I don't want to go too much into specific players because we'll probably do another transfer podcast in this kind of break. But yeah, Colm, what's the number 1 position you think we need to improve on?
Oh, it's so tough. It's so, I would all season long. I mean, I've been saying for years we need a right winger, like literal years. I'm genuinely trying to think of the last decent right winger we had, and I can't do it. Probably Valencia before he turned into a terrible right back. But
he was a good right back for at least a couple of years.
Okay, sorry. That's always been the big imbalance in our front 3, and it's so hard not to just look at attacking players. Greenwood obviously fills that role immensely. I think in my mind, Sancho's already done, so I've moved on from that. So it seems trite to say, Sancho is the guy we absolutely need, but he is the guy we absolutely need. He could be, there's maybe a slight reservation about his character, but he could be really the icing on the cake of getting us back to where we belong. But beyond that, I do think we need a centre back. But I also think a hugely important position now is Matic, because as good as he has been, that is a short-term solution to a long-term problem, and it's so pivotal. You can see when he doesn't play well, we struggle so much, and Pogba at the moment, good as he has been, needs someone beside him. You know, he needs an anchor beside him to allow Pogba just to do what he wants. Basically, if you put more of that pressure on Pogba, you see a lot of silly giveaways in our own half, leading to chances for the opposition. And I just think we need a young, mobile Matic, but who still has that quality to set tempo and dictate play. At the moment, Scott McTominay could go into it. A lot of people would be skeptical of that, and surely so would I. Fred, as we've already discussed, I don't think fills either of those roles. So I think we need to buy, and it's a very, for me, it's Ruben Neves or someone like that, but it's a very unique and specific specialist role.
Yeah, I know there's been a couple of them mentioned, like Rice at West Ham as well. I mean, I
I
actually
was impressed with him.
don't think that we're an immediate pressing need to bring in a defensive midfielder. I mean, I do know, all right, Matic is getting on, but he's still only 31.
I know,
he
but it's a
plays in that
succession
kind of
thing as well.
similar-ish style to Carrick, and all right, he's not going to play like twice a week. He's not going to play every game. But yeah, I would like to see as well whether McTominay can grow into this role. I mean, at the moment, his passing is nowhere near good enough to say he can be Matic's replacement, but he's also a very young player who's coming on. I'd like to give him some chance to see if he can adapt himself and grow into that role and be that Matic replacement. Like, for me, it's not the most pressing place we need to improve on. I mean,
goalkeeper
the next year or two.
I should also say
Goalkeepers, Henderson. For me, Henderson's coming in. He's going to challenge to be the number one. And I said on the last podcast, I think by the end of next season, he will be on number one, even if he's not at the start of next season. For me, centre back is the big area where we need to improve. Like, Ori Lindelof did have a good game today, but even if he does, we still need another one. Even if we think that he's getting he can be first choice, I think we need somebody faster, because we've seen a couple of times that Maguire is not the fastest, and a couple of times the speed is an issue. So we need somebody else who's like a super pacey centre back, I think, to really just match in with him. That was my number one priority, is another centre back. I think that is where we can be better, even though we've had pretty decent clean sheet record, even notwithstanding De Gea's mistakes here and there.
It's the eye test. There's just something about that partnership, although both of them have shown good things, and Lindelof has finished the season extremely strongly, I think, the last few weeks, which is really, really pleasing. There's something about that pairing that just doesn't fill you with confidence in terms of mounting any kind of serious title challenge. I think the big thing is, we can hum and ha about who it might be and whatever else, Van der Beek, we're going to get Grealish, we will do a pod on all these kind of things. But the thing we just need is for Ole to be backed. I appreciate it's a delicate situation with Corona and the global economy and all that kind of stuff, but what that was today was really Ole earning a real war chest, in my opinion. And I do think, as we're seeing with Chelsea, that, as you've just alluded to, it's a market that can be taken advantage of. Woodward's spoken about that, so at the moment I have no reason to think we won't go and make moves, but it's a short window. Our recent transfer strategy doesn't really lend itself to a small window, so I'm hoping we can be decisive. I'm hoping we already have targets lined up, because it's a pivotal moment for us, and a summer transfer window that lays down a bit of a statement, I think, is really important for Ole and how this team moves forward.
I think probably that we did have to wait to cement this Champions League, because especially with the financial situation, like I've mentioned, from match tickets and that kind of thing.
The Adidas money as well would have dropped if we didn't get it again this year.
I was just going to mention that. So I think for sure that he's going to get a better budget now than they want it done. But we know for sure that these deals have already been worked on, even though the transfer window is only opening. These things are always going on in the background between agents and intermediaries. But like I say, it's going to be a weird period now, different than we've ever had. Europa League kicking off in 10 days, and we'll focus on the transfers in the meantime. I'm sure we'll throw out a pod before we re-kick off in the Europa League again, and it's going to be like a kind of World Cup style little tournament. Like I say, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm hoping we take a bit of experiment, whereas you two want to go really hardcore at it. So let's see how Ole decides. It'll be interesting to see. Look, it's a kind of celebratory pod anyway, with taken our top 4 place, and even 3 that I didn't even expect. I thought I was expecting number 4, but to come in 3rd as well even gives you that extra bit of bonus there. Dave was feeling pleased with himself, although annoyed that he's not bet on it. So make sure you put your money on whenever you make these predictions
100%.
next time, David.
I might put it on right now that Greenwood will be top scorer next season.
All right, go and do it now, because you'll regret it if you don't. All right, I think that's as good a place as any for us to say good night for now, and we'll see you back before that Europa League start.
Cheerio.
Yeah, take care, guys.
I think 3rd with this team and the squad where we've been, with the rebuild, has been a massive achievement by everyone.
Schmeichel. Oh, he's lost it to Lingard. Jesse Lingard! Lingard sends United into the Champions League. And all of his teammates pile on. That is it. And United are back amongst Europe's elite again. Back where they belong again. The Champions League. They've caught Leicester on the final bend. A 14-point deficit overturned. Leicester 0, Manchester United 2.